Morning, folks. Hope you're okay. Just type in if you can who you are. Let's see, we've got 4 or 5 of you online right now. Just get Mike up here now. Got a Q&A today with Mike Browne, who many of you may well know. Hi, mate. You signing in? Okay, mate. Cheers, then. Good morning, Dom. Hope you're okay, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Morning, Gus. Hope you're okay. Mike's just linking into the Zoom now. What I was going to do originally, hi Graham, Jacko, you all right, mate? Was do a Zoom call between us all, but I can't do Zoom and YouTube at the same time because there's like a 7 or 8 second delay. It doesn't work very well. Good morning, last 48207. Morning, Jez. All right, mate. Hey, Karen. Hope you're okay. You might be coming in now. Hey. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Great stuff. All right, folks, you've not seen his ugly mug for ages. Here he is, star of the show. Yeah, great. Yeah, all good. Right.
Good. Keep it well.
Yeah, all fine. It's weird times, obviously, for all of us, but I'm just going to try and get the screens to align here now.
Perfect. Who's on board?
So far, we have got Dom Felton, Gus Dennis. Just 1 second, I'll get the screens together so you can all see each other. I'm just trying to work my tripod here a little bit. Okay, so let's get that. In fact, what I might do is turn a light off here. Is that better, guys, at home? If I take the lights off? I'm trying to get the glare out of the screen. How are we going to do this?
Yeah, it should be up.
Now, the problem is I've got you on glare there. They want to see. Now, how's that going to work best?
You can't do side by side, can you?
Might work better outdoors, actually. Let me have a quick check outdoors.
Yeah.
That work better outdoors, won't it?
Yeah, that's better, isn't it?
Can everybody see better outdoors than indoors? Yeah, I think it does work better.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second. Let me get everything set up. Alrighty. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Everyone see Mike now? Everyone see Mike now?
Yeah, that's better.
Great, thanks, Dom. There's a slight time delay. So what Mike and I can hear is about 7 seconds ahead from what you guys are getting, which shouldn't affect anything anyway, but it gives us a good chance.
Hang on, I need to turn my sound down.
Yeah, take off YouTube, mate.
Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Alrighty, there you go. You can see I'm not a professional at doing this sort of thing. All right, let me get Mike in here. Alrighty, so what time is it now? Got 9.
Oh, that worked well.
There we go. So 5 minutes. Got a couple more minutes before we get everybody in. And I'll put Mike there so it's nice and cozy.
You been busy this morning, Richard?
Yeah, I do videos for the members.
Oh, brilliant.
So I do a live shoot for them on. I'll try and get us both in here. No, yeah, I do a live shoot for them 4 or 5 days a week, and then I do 2 on Course Foundation. If I get to that routine of doing it now, then I'm doing one for the personal recovery centres next week. So hopefully we get a sort of broader reach and get to meet more people. So tell Mike to take his hat off. It's not a you know what movie.
A what?
He said take his hat off. He's indoors. He says it's not a you know what movie.
You should see the state of my hair. Look. I need a haircut.
Don't worry about it, mate. Alrighty, so what have we got? It's now 10:36. So I think what we'll do is we'll crack on. So this is something I wanted to do for quite a while, actually. It's funny how the lockdown and the weirdness of the whole coronavirus has highlighted an opportunity to do some other things for the On Course Foundation. And what I'm going to do today is get the message from Mike to you via me. And I'm talking really on behalf of Di and Alistair here, because they've had a huge impact on coaching Mike. But what's the beauty of today is that I'm going to ask Mike some questions which are relevant to all golfers. And he's going to word it in a way which is obviously a dialogue you'll understand, because he's one of you. And our job as pros is to try and explain it in a way how you convert that into your own game as well. And the beauty of the coronavirus is that it's creating lots of different ways of coaching, which we weren't really thinking about before. Now, Di and Alistair and myself, when we sit down and have a chat about it, we often talk about how creatively we've had to think when we're dealing with injuries or disabilities with the servicemen and ladies of the On Course Foundation. Because we have to work with what you've got. It's the same with every golfer, no matter who we have. If they're able-bodied or non-military ties, we have to work with what they've got, and everyone's got limitations. And there's a very famous story of one of the world's best players creating an injury for himself through his golf swing with his coach, because what he was doing was trying to do something his body wasn't capable of. They went too far, and then it hurt him. Hi, Richard. Just realised you've logged in there. Nice to see you. And so what we have to do, we have to understand our own limitations and work within that. And now I clearly will make a much better golf professional than doctor or surgeon, because I said Mike's injury was actually right leg below knee. It's actually left leg above knee. So don't come looking at me for surgical advice, guys. I'll probably cause more harm than good. So what we have to do is we all have to work with our limitations, be it that strength, our height, our build, or work with our limitations on the injuries which you've sustained at the On Course Foundation. Now, the real beauty, and I must tell you this, and this is another sort of light on moment for me as a coach. We're always on an evolution as a coach, and we're always trying to learn things all the time, Diane, Alistair, and myself. And one of the big evolutions for me was that, we move everything in a golf swing. And so why we are able to coach you as servicemen is that because everything moves, we're not relying on one thing. Golf is not a one-limb sport. Everything plays a part. And so if you are missing a limb, or you're missing some part of your body, or you have a very heavy injury to that part of the body, we can adapt it quite quickly. And the reason why we've had so much fun with you guys is that we can see you improving, no matter what the injuries are. And we've taught some it was really sort of quite awkward situations in the past physically with, well, how on earth are we going to work around it? And eventually we get there between your hard work, your endeavour, and your sort of guts and what have you, and our sort of professional skill as golfers. We say, well, if we do this and a bit of that, then eventually we get there. And I want Mike to touch on that today because it's very important to all of you. And so first things first, let me just tell you about Mike. This is an incredible story, and it's much easier for me to tell you this story than him because it would embarrass him because it's just such an incredible, and I use the word inspirational, it's a bit overused, but this is a truly inspiring thing that we've come across here. So Mike was in 2-9 Commando, Royal Artillery. He represented the Army in motocross competition, and he had an accident in 2011. He then had his left leg taken off above the knee in May 2013, and his first event with the On Course Foundation was October 2013. You then fast forward only a few months to July 2014. And so just after about 14 months after he had his leg taken off, he had a handicap of 28. Now, the national average handicap for a golfer who plays 2 or 3 times a week, a male golfer, is about 21. And what we do know is with people when they attain their handicaps, is the handicap you attain in your first 3 years is more or less the standard you stay at. It's quite interesting because people don't get a lot better after their first 3 years. Your learning curve is very rapid in the first 3 years, but it does sort of plateau a little bit. Now, Mike, being Mike, of course, had a handicap of 28 in 2014, and then he turned professional just over 2 years later. Now, that is a heroic improvement, that. And we're going to get onto why and how he did it, and how you can apply some of the skills that he's done to your game to help you improve. Because what we know as coaches is that all the mistakes that we've made over the years, all the mistakes that we've seen other people make, is we're trying to get rid of those out of the learning process so that you become better golfers in a much shorter space of time. And taking lessons is really a shortcut on a game which doesn't have many shortcuts to it. So 28 handicap at 2014, which is pretty standard for a lot of the beginners and sort of early starters at the On-Course Foundation to get to 28. Turned pro in 2016. And let me just explain what pro status is. It basically means you play for money and you can't go back to being an amateur for quite a long time. Actually, it's quite strict. Once you've gone and turned to become a professional, no matter in what format. Now, I'm a club professional, a Professional Golfers Association, PGA professional. So I work at a club and I can play professionally. And I would play, when I did used to play, I would play on the sort of Professional Golfers Association level of events. Above that, you then have the Europro Tour. And so lots of my compatriots would play in the Europro Tour as well. And that's where you're really playing for your own money. It's quite expensive to play in those events, and you can play in the Europro. And then you have the Challenge Tour, which is the tour between what the world's best players are on and the next level. So there's only 4 levels of tour, really. And Mike has competed on the Europro Tour, which is only one below where some of the world's best players end up coming off the tour. So when they finish on the European Tour or the US Tour, they come play Challenge Tour, and then those Challenge Tours flip between Europro events and Challenge Tour. So Mike plays on the Europro, which also has many other tours at the same level. He actually has won 2 events, believe it or not, and these are with no allowances. These aren't sort of disability events, of which he's won some anyway. But these are events on the TP Tour, and also he won a Pro-Am at Ashridge. Now, I must tell you a lovely story here. He shot the course record at Ashridge to win the event there. And Alistair Barr used to work there. So one of the 3 coaches used to work there. So a nice bit of symmetry. And then when Mike was telling me the story today, I remembered that Di, at one of the events, got chatting to one of the young Marines. And it turns out that they both lived on Malta. And Di knew this Marine's dad. And he'd actually held this young Marine as a baby when he was first born. So it's amazing how small the world is, because Di's dad was a Royal Marine. Alrighty, so that's the history of Mike. He then held a disability, a world disability golf ranking of being 2nd in the world. So this is a guy who we're unbelievably proud of for his grit, determination, his ability to adapt himself into golf, having never played the game before. So over to you, Mike, to just say a quick hello to everyone who's online. And don't forget as well, there's going to be lots of clicks after this. So the people who are watching now are obviously live, but we get hundreds of clicks afterwards. So a big hello from you, please, mate.
Oh yeah, hello. Hope everyone's well in this crazy time. Hope all the On-Course members are tuning in all the time to Richard. I've been watching a few as well, and it's interesting to see different sides of playing golf from Richard. And I've put a lot of his sort of techniques into my thing now, just from being at home. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right. So, Mike, just first of all, talk about your weekly routine as a pro. Forget the coronavirus, but what would your weekly routine be normally?
So every day I'm in the gym at 7:30. I'll do an hour and a half. Not all necessarily like weight work, but I'll do a lot of like foam rolling and stretching and stuff like that. Because obviously, being an amputee, there's certain positions I need to try and get into that sometimes I can't possibly get to, if you know what I mean. So foam rolling and stuff like that really helps me.
So do you find that the foam rolling stretches you out, and that makes you sort of physically stronger and fitter and sort of able to practice?
Yeah, definitely. And it helps me sort of, especially with my lower back, because of the rotation I get on the backswing. Foam rolling actually really helps me with my rotation. So I do a lot of that on my lower back. So I'll do that for like half an hour, and then I'll do a full, in the morning I'll always do a cardio session. And then basically from that I'll go home, have a shower at the gym, and then go straight into the course. Mondays are usually a whole day of short game for me. So whether it be anything from 60 yards and inwards, or around the green, and then I'll spend the afternoon putting. And then second day, so Tuesday will be gym again, exactly the same routine. But instead of going to like short game area, I'll do 50 to 150 yards. So it's not all long clubs all the time, But I've got a certain routine, so I'll do I'll do 10 balls with each, and then just work my way up the bag, and then I'll work back down again.
It's quite interesting that, because the pros can be very, very structured in their practice, and they'll hit 10 balls or 15 balls, whatever the number is per club, regardless of how good or bad they are. And a big lesson for all of us when we're practicing is that you have to have some consequence. Now, if you say, I've hit that one bad, I'll just hit one more ball, then all you're doing is practicing until you hit a good one. If you have 10 balls there, so I've got to hit these 10 balls well. And so we have to add consequence. And what the sports psychologists tell us all the time is it only matters if it matters. So obviously, So what it means is if you've got those 10 balls there, you've got to hit all 10 of them well. So that's good practice, that, Mike. I like that.
Cheers. Yeah. So, and then basically what I'll do then is on a Tuesday I'll do 2 gym sessions. So in the evening I'll go to the gym again, and then that'll be a weight session. And then Wednesday I'll do another day of short game. So I'll vary it. So what I'll do is a big one for me is like when I was first started, I used to hit hundreds of balls just with no purpose as such. But now, like you said just now, I try and picture a shot in my head that I'll pick a point of say 60 yards, and I'll give myself a little window to try and hit that into every time, because at our club we've got every 10 yards. So I try and if I'm outside of that yards, I know where I'm going wrong.
That's brilliant.
So then I can go and pick the balls up afterwards, and sort of I'll know which yardages I'm not very good at, or which yardages I am good at.
So one thing I've noticed when we do the sessions is when we're at the driving ranges, we've got a chance to have buckets of balls and we can smash drivers. Oftentimes after the sort of first 90-minute session, we'll say, okay, let's go and have a coffee or go and have a chat and what have you. And a lot of people still want to hit balls. And with that determination to hit balls is fantastic. Now, you used a word there where you said it's got to have a bit of an aim, or I can't remember what the word you said was, that things can't be aimless. So when you go to the driving range, I love the fact that people hit balls, but try and practice creatively. And that's when you sort of aim.
Practice with a purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. So you go there and say, okay, I'm determined today to practice my short game, but don't just hit 60 shots. I'm just trying to talk to everyone here now. Don't hit sort of 60-yard shots over and over again. Hit 60, 50, try and hit left or right of the target. Vary it a lot because the game is so varied anyway. If you go on the golf course, every course looks different. Every hole looks different. Yeah. And whilst we're trying to master some form of consistency in the game, what Mike's telling you there is that there's a limit to how much you should practice each discipline and how you should practice each range, really. Yeah,
it's like... So when I do that as well, I'll sort of sometimes later on. So I'll do a session, and then I'll on the second session I try and picture like a shot that I've already played and try and replicate that because I know it was a good shot. So I try and do that and vary it up, sort of thing.
Brilliant. And so when you're doing your practice, then it's quite interesting that you say about you practice the short game for the first 2 or 3 days of your working week, because one of the phrases I use a lot is the best way to improve your short game is to eliminate the need for it.
Yeah.
If you're driving well and hitting fairways and greens well, then you don't need to be a good short game. However, I must show you a stat I found today, and this is where Mike is absolutely on the money on what he's practicing. Just found his stats today. I was looking online at the stats of the world's best players. Now, I've got it here. McIlroy, his driving accuracy percentage, which is just here, is 56%. He only hits 56% of the fairways. Now, in terms of he's the world #1 player. Now, I'm going to talk to you about stats as well later on, but if we've got time. His greens in regulation, which is just here, is actually, 71% there. So his greens in regulation. So that means on a par 3, he hits the green in 1 shot. On a par 4, he hits the green in 2 shots. On a par 5, he hits the green in 3 shots, or probably 2 shots.
Yeah.
So where Mike's right is that he's a practice shot, which I can relive in mind, which is a good positive shot. The pros hit plenty of bad shots, so don't get too bogged down with trying to be perfect and what have you. So what I was saying there about eliminating the short game is it's a very glib thing. Oh, just hit the ball better. But the harder you work on all aspects of your game, the better your game becomes. And what Mike's doing here, because he's at a very, very high level of golf, his skill range with his drive will move in quite a tight tolerance. He won't be able to gain another 30 yards each year, but what he can do is stop chipping and two-putting 2 or 3 times in a round and chipping single-putting. So he's right to work on his short game at his level. At a more sort of normal golfer level, let's get the driver working out first of all.
Yeah, that was a big thing of mine. Like everyone says, oh, every shot does actually count because they say. What's the saying? Drive for show, putt for dough. But the thing is, if you're not in them positions in the first place, so every shot's as important as the other. So your drive's important, your second shot's important because you need your drive to go in the fairway to play that second shot. Yeah. And then you need that second shot on the green to be able to use your putt. So
now you think of this way, Mike here's a pro. And when I said McIlroy, the world #1 player, has only hit 56% of his fairways, he went, wow, 56, is that it? Now, that's
crazy.
It is crazy. Now, what's happening there? Mike is always learning. We're all students of the game. I'm a student of the game. I've learned something new today. I was looking up some research earlier. I've learned something new today. There's so much out there. Now, Mike's a student of the game. Now, if McIlroy hits 56% of the fairways, it's because he's not missing them the same way we miss them. He's not going 40, 80 yards off target. He might be just missing fairways. So the numbers can be a bit skewed. But more importantly, his skill from the rough is almost as good as his skill from the fairway. So what he loses in a bit of accuracy, he's quite happy to lose because he can gain some distance as well. Now, we all have to work with our limitations. We all have to work with our abilities and our disabilities and what have you. It's much easier to play the game from the centre of the fairway than it is 10 yards further on but in the rough grass. Okay, mate. So then, when do you work in your long game then, and when do you play practice? When you're playing the golf course practice?
Yeah, like on usually tournaments usually start on a Thursday for us. So I'll just I vary it every week. So I try and tend to do 70-30 short game for me. I mean the long game's good. You can stand and hit balls all day, but if you're not doing it correctly, like you said before, if you're just standing there hitting balls incorrectly, that incorrectness is going to go into your golf swing and then take it onto the golf course. So I think with me is I used to just hit balls like all day, just hit balls so repetitively, but I never used to find any benefit from it. So now what I'm doing. Well,
I must tell you, Mike, you did. You did find benefit. Yeah. It's part of the reason why you got to where you are. And one of the reasons that I wanted so much to do this is that you'll have made mistakes along the way, which you might regret now, but it's all part of forming patterns in your swing. Now, every tour professional turns back and says, I wish I'd done this differently. It's just life, right? So I must assure you that the patterns that you form by that repetitive, boring practice have made you the golfer you are today. As you became better as a golfer, you worked how to use that time much better. But you wouldn't have known how to do that without the practice prior, I assure you.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I didn't think of it like that. So, yeah, that's very true. But yeah, so now what I do is I try and structure how many balls I hit. So I've taken all that energy that I used to have for hitting balls on a golf range over into like the mechanical side of everything now. So working on them specific muscles that help me, not necessarily gain the yardages, but I can use my energy better in my golf swing.
Sure. Alrighty, so then you get into your tournament life on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and hopefully you make the cut to stay on there on a Saturday and a Sunday. For those of you who don't know much about tournament golf, the way the tournaments work, it's that Thursday and Friday is everybody plays, and on Friday night they work out the top half of the field and the rest of them go home. Now, just as a brief aside there, Mike, got to say a big hello to our ward sister, Karen Horn, who's watching up there with Jez. And she's...
Hey, Jez, how are you doing?
I'm sure he's all right. So she sends a total beginner, which club do you recommend on the range? I've been mostly using a 7, and that's absolutely fine, Karen, but use it off a T-peg, and the T-peg should be about 1 or 2 inches high, preferably. Once you get bored of using it off a T-peg, go on a slightly lower T-peg and then off the mat. Now, once you sort of got used and comfortable with the 7-9, then move to different clubs. And I recommend trying using a 5-wood, a club with plenty of loft on it. And then try and hit some short ones as well. Take out the wedge, get some lessons off Jez, because he will teach you some good habits. Alrighty, so I say you split your practice. That's interesting. So your whole week is basically geared up to Thursday morning tournament time.
Yeah.
Just talk us through your work ethic. Just talk us through what happens when you don't feel like practicing. What happens when you sort of do get a bit bored?
That's pretty much like I just sort of I've got into a thought of where I was, compared to where I am now, and that's my drive. And I think soldiers, and I think that's why like the progression in the on-course foundation is so rapid, because the mentality of the way we think is just we get on with things.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter how we're feeling, and that little bit of drive is all we need. Because don't get me wrong, I feel down. I feel like some days I don't want to get out of bed, But I then remember where I was when I was obviously I spent 5 months in hospital with all this, and then I just remember that time, and then I think, wow, there's nothing you've got to worry about now, so just enjoy it. So like I live every day to the max now, and just enjoy life.
It's something which our side of the civilian fence, which we talk about an awful lot, is how admirable we find that drive and determination, because we know what's going on in the background with a lot of you, and some of you we don't know what's going on in the background.
Yeah.
Because obviously we talk to you all the time. And funny enough, even then when I was inside, and we're always learning from you, by the way. We spend an awful lot of time, Alistair, myself, and everyone who works at the On-Course Foundation. We learn an awful lot. Don't underestimate that. And funny enough, just then when I was inside, I was trying to get the screens to work. I thought, we'll just go outside. And I instantly said, improvise, adapt, overcome. It's what one of the soldiers said to me years ago at one of the events. Yeah. Improvise, adapt, overcome. And I use it all the time as a phrase. I just think it's a fantastic mindset. Brilliant. But your mindset, it determines everything, doesn't it? And I tell you, the reason why I asked the question is that the tour professionals talk an awful lot about getting bored when they practice. And I think, I'd just rather be going to have a pint or go and do something, less productive. But it's interesting to listen to you and say, there's been dark places where you've been. And they said, well, I can either go back there or, I've got motivation.
I mean, I just remember, try and think how lucky I am to be doing this, what I do now,
And the beauty of golf as well is there are so many goals in golf, aren't there? There's so many things you can achieve in different departments of the game.
I mean, I love it because I learn every day. No matter how good you are, how bad you are, someone can learn off of you. So there was one of the best sort of tips I had was I don't know, I think it was an 18 or 19 handicapper, and I think that's where our progression as military people comes in, because we listen, and we're not know-it-alls, and there's so many of these young lads that are out on the tour now that just know everything, and you see these old boys trying to talk to them, and they just sort of ignore them, but they come over to me and I listen and I love it. So
I've got to tell you, I think golf has got a very strong culture of passing on information between the world's best players. Yeah. Seve Ballesteros taught Tiger Woods how to play the short game, or helped him with his short game. There's so many golfers who've learned from a previous generation. And when I first met, I've known Alistair for years. Alistair taught me as a young pro. So when I was a teenager, Alistair was teaching me through my PGA exams. So he's come full circle. And I've always had a very good relationship with Alistair. And then when I knew Di was coming on board, originally when we first said it, when the On-Course Foundation set up, I thought, oh my God, this guy's a legend in our industry. We sat and I chewed his ear for hours, and I chew Alistair's ear for hours. So I'm always picking their brains and learning. Like I say, we learn an awful lot from you guys. Karen Horn's just written here. Karen is Jez's partner. And she said, such an inspiration. Yeah. This is a woman who's a ward sister right now in the NHS, walking up and down wards, with the weirdest coronavirus going on. So, Karen, you're an inspiration. And like I said last time, hopefully the On-Course Foundation can spread out and branch out into key workers, NHS, police, firemen, the lot. It's all part and parcel of what makes the On-Course Foundation community. Absolutely right. All right, Mike, just on that note there, you made a great point about learning all the time. I'll try and find it here. I'm not sure I've got it. I did a talk the other day for my members, and it was about, it's Jack Nicklaus, the best player of all time. He then says, let me just get this up here. Talk about this improvise, adapt, overcome. So he says here, this is the best player of all time. He says, at each tournament, some part of my swing is sticking out more that week than it generally does. Consequently, I find myself fastening on some little gimmick that will help me either to feel right or to swing right for the duration of the tournament. It might be doing this, it might be doing that. The next week, it'll be something else. And I mentioned to my friends, I'm forced to rely on a succession of gimmicks. I can sense a number of them are let down to learn this. They would much rather hear that a professional golfer has everything securely under control, that each year he gains an increased mastery of his technique. All I can say is I wish that was so. So that tells you everything about Mike's ability to learn. He's always trying to pick people's brains. Now, if you go to a tour event and you're asking tour players there who've seen it all and made all the mistakes, what they do differently, I mean, what greater fast forward is there than that? Brilliant, mate.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like, you know, I was the biggest one for me was when I played in the Scottish Open last year, and I was on the range and there was Ricky Fowler, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, and then I was like, I looked right in and I was stood there and I was like, oh, and then there was Lee Westwood next to me, Louis Nose, and I was like, what am I doing here? And it was like just so surreal. And
That's incredible.
It was amazing because like all the on-course lads come up and it was just so good to have them there. And it was one of the lads caddied for me one day, and just it was unreal.
I mean, in tournament life at that level is a completely different circus, isn't it?
Oh, that was an experience like I've never experienced. That was my first ever sort of, and my first ever round in the European Tour event was with Matt Kuchar. So I was like, this is crazy, and it's good.
That's incredible. Now it's quite interesting there because again we talk about this an awful lot with the servicemen and service ladies. There are highs and lows. Now you've just discussed there. You feel low at the minute because you've had your lifeblood drawn away from, which is golf, which is tournament play and being a pro and what have you. And yet only last year you had the high of the of playing with the world's top players there. And it is tough. It's tough for everybody, the whole mental side of things. And what we've seen over the years is how the On-Course Foundation has become a bit more of a mental health charity as opposed to just a military charity. And thankfully, as well, the stigma is being taken away from that. And I do urge everybody who's watching this today just to get in touch with each other, get in touch with me, talk about golf, talk about whatever you want. I don't care. But send us a video of your swings. You know, get in touch with us, speak to Mike, speak to each other, set up Zoom chats between all of you, because a massive part of staying positive is just having some human interaction, isn't it? And talking about stuff we love, which is golf.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I'm always here if any of you lads, need anything. I'm not a coach or anything like that, but just from experience, just sort of. The thing is, when I say experience, like I've got such a short time of experience, but I've crammed so much into it just because, I love being a sponge. I love learning. I love just everything about golf. It's absolutely like massively changed my life. I'm so lucky. It's unreal.
Yeah, good for you, man. The thing is, all the hard work you're doing now and the practice that you're doing now, it will pay off, I assure you. And eventually this will end. I've spent time with some of the world's best players watching them talk to each other, and they're fascinating. They're just always talking about how they can do this and how they can do that better. So it's an endless sort of journey, golf. And that's why it's so intellectually rewarding. Now, my next question was going to be what drives you. We've already discussed that. It's quite clear. So your work ethic and what drives you are actually very heavily linked, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%.
So what's it like being an ex-soldier in a completely new world? I mean, is this your employment? So this could be, it's a very glamorous employment, obviously.
Yeah.
But what's it like being a serviceman or an ex-serviceman in that world?
I mean, I think a lot of military sort of skills roll over. I mean, integrity, honesty, and everything sort of rolls over from the military into golf. And that camaraderie, I think that's why golf's such an amazing tool, because we could transfer that camaraderie into what's now, the on-course. For me, is it's my new regiment, the lads from, there's so many people that I haven't met yet in the on-course, because obviously I've been doing other things. So obviously this year with tournaments being away. Like, hopefully we can start getting back to some events for the on-course and stuff like that later on in the year, and hopefully I can attend them. So, it'd be nice to get back involved and get some of that bonding back that's sorely missed at the moment for everyone.
Oh, without a doubt. That rings true for the entire staff of the. I mean, obviously, I'm staff of the On-Course Foundation. It rings true for all of us.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, okay. My next question is: how do you rate yourself as a golfer? Now, I'm not saying how do you rate yourself compared to Rory McIlroy. The departments of your game would be driving, your iron play, wedges, and your putting. So, how would you rate yourself in your driving? What would you give yourself out of 10 for your driving?
Depends what day it is.
Okay. This is why you need to work on your short game. You see, if you're a better driver, you wouldn't need the short game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, but one day I'll be hitting the driver really well, and putting it where I want, etc. And then I feel exactly the same swing the next day. I don't know where it's coming, but I've learned how to have a stop shot now. I never used to have a stop shot. So if I don't feel quite right,
I'll just describe what a stock shot is. I'll just describe to everyone what a stock shot is. Because a stock shot is basically a shot a player will go to which they know they can repeat and perform under pressure. It might not be their very best shot. Now, you hear me use the word optimum all the time. An optimum shape is a ball that curves to the left. It optimizes distance. It doesn't mean to say it's controllable. So when Mike says he goes to a stock shot, it's a shot which he knows he can repeat. So what if you do have if you have a bad driving day, Mike, is the ball going left or right?
My bad days are left. So it's all to do with, believe it or not, is how my leg feels that day. It's really weird. Like, if I feel like my leg's slightly off or something like that, I'll get really handsy. So I'll pull it left, or I'll just turn it right over, and it'll be either not necessarily a snap up, but it'll be an overdraw. So basically, then all I do is literally feel like I'm clearing my left hip. So I'll pull my left leg back and just play a little baby fade.
So going back to what Jack Nicklaus said, you just adapt, improvise, adapt, overcome.
Yeah,
but you're very sensitive to your body. You're a fit man. You're spending a lot of time in the gym. And so when you know your leg isn't performing, you have to make adjustments for that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously, once you sort of get that feeling, it's in your head then. So I just try and stick with that shot throughout the day.
Well, it's interesting here. I've got a great article here, which I might well post underneath this event here, this session. And it's from Jack Nicklaus talking about the psychology of the game. And he says, a lot of guys can go out and hit a golf ball, but they have no idea how to manage what they're doing. I've won as many tournaments hitting the ball badly as I have hitting the ball well. And I'm more proud of the wins when I played badly. So it's about managing that, isn't it? Now, if the world's best player of all time can't swing the same way every single week and can't hit the ball perfectly every single week, but still win, then the message from Mike there is very, very stark. You have to improvise, adapt, overcome. Now, what he's saying to you there is he's an athlete. Mike is a fit guy. He always has been by all accounts. And so what he's doing there now is being sensitive to that and not being afraid to make a change.
No. And it's having that mental strength in that particular moment to change it as well. If you don't feel well or feel like that shot's not working for you, I need to go to my stock shot, and it's having that mental strength to trust it.
Brilliant.
That's where.
Well, it's interesting here because Dom Felton just made a great point. He said, I have great difficulty getting my mindset right with psychological injury when I'm on the course.
Yeah.
So the way to get your mind set for golf is to keep everything in a sequence. And if we listen to what Mike's saying there, he's basically saying that if he puts everything in a sequence, like the whole of his whole week, his gym sessions, which are obviously very important to him, even if he wasn't a golfer, I think he'd be a gym user. So I think the key to it is putting it in sequence, and then so when you go for a round of golf, it's not just turning up 5 minutes before you play; it's putting some practice in to that. Now, hopefully, one of the benefits, one of the ways of fighting mental health issues on the golf course with golf is setting yourself all these different targets. Now, Dom's been great. He's been sending me so many videos of his swing, and we've been working hard on that. He's improving his swing all the time. So hopefully, Dom, those are the little things. And again, we're all sort of, a bit, everyone's got their own sort of things to deal with here. But you're improving your swing, Dom. Now, I assure you, the work you do in your swing will multiply the quality of your golf when we get back together again. Now, if you want to expand on that a little bit, Dom, then just let me know and we'll go from there.
I mean, like the one of the biggest things that got my mental sort of state in check was feeling prepared. But when I first turned pro, it was like I made such the wrong choice. I was so far out of my depth. I didn't feel comfortable, and then basically it was because I wasn't prepared. And then like my mental strength become back in because I felt prepared, and then it's just like an ongoing chain.
It is, and I think it's one of those things which what Dom's saying there is how you set yourself a sort of a pattern of behaviour for your golf. And I would say for 99% of the time, we've had extremely few issues with any bad behaviour, in inverted commas, or people not understanding what to do with golf. And your military background really helps you with that. It's how you convert it into golf. So I think that's the skill that you're using now. All right.
I think as well, it's like having that, getting into a routine of knowing what's going on.
And so you purposely start your day early in the morning, so you're sort of not in bed wondering what or getting glum and what have you.
Yeah.
So you get out and about and do positive things all day.
Just makes up proactive and try and fill your day with stuff that's already planned because you sort of know what you're doing.
Interesting.
Rather than just if you I've been there before. Don't plan anything and just try and make it up on a day. You just go, I'll do it tomorrow, and then that's when you start sitting down on the sofa, and that's when obviously your mental health side of things keeps coming in.
And does it dip rapidly? If you sort of have a day where you think you've not had a structured day, I'll sit on the sofa, I'll do it all tomorrow. Do you find yourself dipping quite quickly?
Yeah, I'm very goal driven. So if I haven't set my goals like day by day, I'll feel like I've not accomplished anything. With me, there's so many better golfers out there, but for me, as long as I'm better tomorrow than I am today, then I'm happy.
Just going to pause you there for a second, Mike. Right, guys, if you're watching now and you're live and you can type in a question, type them in. So there's about, like I said, there's maybe a 10-second delay between what we're saying and what you're hearing. So if you've got any questions, type them in. I'm going to come back to Karen's question in a second. And while you're doing that, I just want to talk to you about Tiger Woods again, because years ago when I was learning the game, we'd have to read books or try and pick the brains of, club professionals or people who we knew, what have you. And then with social media, we find out so much more stuff we perhaps shouldn't find out, but also a lot of stuff which the pros want us to know. And the reason why I asked you about the structure of your day is that if you've got all that time to play and practice, you've got to understand, you've got to work out what your physical abilities are and also what your work ethic is. Now, Tiger Woods goes to the gym twice in a day. He has one sleep in the middle of the day. And what he does, he breaks it up into 2-hour slots. So it's a 2-hour gym session. It's 2 hours short game, 2 hour 9 holes. Then he has his lunch, has a sleep. And then it's 2 hours short game again, 2 hours 9 holes. And he might go and play and do a bit of short game at the end of the day as well. But he really stretches his day out. Now, he's also an insomniac, Tiger Woods. He finds himself working out in the gym at 3-4 o'clock in the morning because he can't sleep. And the reason why we know that was that McIlroy was sending out these tweets ages ago saying, look, I've got this message here. We both live in Florida, a mile apart from each other, from Tiger at 3:30 in the morning saying, what are you up to? Because I'm fast asleep. And Tiger's there because he's so full of energy and he's a highly intelligent man.
Yeah.
And he's so full of desire to get better at everything. And for him, that includes his diet, his exercise, his training in the gym, how hard he pushes himself, as well as his practice on the golf course. That he's continually doing something which is positive. Now, I don't think you need to be a top psychologist to work out there's a guy who's had his own issues. And also if you look at his background, he can be as fragile as anybody. So I think filling your day with positive things. So when you set yourself those targets, how far in advance would you set them?
Well, I'll do a week by week sort of planner, yeah. Because obviously things change. You don't have tournaments. You don't always make cuts. You don't, necessarily. And for the other one is it's hard being on the road as well. Being in a different country in a different time zone is the hardest thing. like when I was in Australia just before Christmas, playing in the Australian Open, and it was just like my body was just all over the shop. I had to go down there probably 3 or 4 days in advance just so I could get on some sort of time to train and stuff like that, you know.
And does that make you respect what the tour professionals do when they're playing in different time zones?
Oh, like it's unreal what they do. Like the main European tour guys, like I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how they find time to practice either, you know, or go to the gym because traveling just wipes you so far out. It's crazy.
Well, what we do know now is that when they go and play in these tour events, their lives are made incredibly simple. So that the coaches for the caddies go straight from the aeroplane at the airport straight to the hotels. They'll all have chauffeur-driven cars taking them here, there, and everywhere. They have the gyms at the courses now, don't they? Have them in the tour trucks now.
Yeah.
They're staying at 5-star hotels, and so that they've always got the best of everything. And what I do admire the guys who are skint, who are sort of trying to make it. And you look back at the great story of Ian Woosnam from years ago. Him and his mate would just live on baked beans, tins of baked beans, and they lived in a caravan, you know, traveling around the whole of Europe. And it is a tough lifestyle, isn't it?
Di told me an amazing story about himself once. He was at his tournament. He had, I think, 30 quid left. He slept in his car overnight. This was going to be his last tournament that he could afford at that particular time. Made the cut, went out and won it, and that was his life changed, you know.
Wow.
And that was that. But someone of that advanced status in golf slept in their car overnight to play a tournament. How dedication is that?
Well, it's incredible. I think it also it's amazing how life and mental health are sort of can be so parallel. The highs and lows, as we discussed a couple of times now with you, and I wanted to touch on that today because I think it's a very important part of keeping everyone healthy mentally. But you look at Di there, at toss of a coin, he was going home. You know, 2 days later, he's got tens of thousands of pounds in his pocket. And he's got his future secured. You know, so life turns very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's got 2 cracking questions. Please. Okay, I've got 2 cracking questions here. So Jez's wife, like I say, she's a ward sister. She's an orthopedic sister. Do you have to adjust your prosthetic? Is the question.
No. So basically, I've got what we call a Genome X3 leg, and it's a microprocessor leg. The only thing I sort of have to adjust in terms is how it's sitting on my leg, because depending on sort of the time of day, my leg swells up, or in the morning it shrinks and stuff like that. So I'll have to readjust it throughout the day, sort of thing. But I try not to change it in a round of golf because it's a bit like. I've already got used to it playing like that, so if I change it, I don't know what sort of stuff it will happen. You know,
it's quite interesting actually, Karen, because I had a phone call last year from a member saying I've got a friend who's just had his leg taken off through illness, not injury. And he said, "Can he come and talk to you about relearning his golf?" This guy was a very avid golfer. Anyway, it turned up, and the only prosthetic limbs that I've ever seen have been with the On Course Foundation, hands. Very few of those, mostly sort of legs above and below knees and what have you. The old thing was the C leg, wasn't it? And that sort of thing.
Yes.
And obviously they're very highly advanced, so we just assumed that was what everybody got. Anyway, this chap turned up. I kid you not, this was like an old bloody wooden leg he had, this poor chap. And he was walking out. I thought, you know, he's going to do more damage than good there. So I'm not sure what the difference is between what the military guys get and what the sort of the standard NHS legs are, really, Karen. In answer to your question from someone who sits in between the middle of you as a professional medic and Mike as a professional amputee golfer. Now, this is, I think, so please.
I think it all comes down to funding. I mean, obviously the NHS are, because if you're injured in service, you come under a thing called the Morrison Fund. So this is why all the military lads are able to be fitted with genium legs, etc. Because they are expensive, and they, like, for the NHS to fund them. I mean, they are coming slowly on the NHS, but I think there's like a grading system for them now, and it's you know, I'm a big believer in like everybody should be sort of able to walk as best they can, and you know, money is what it is, you know, and I think that's the biggest issue that they have.
No joke.
That's why the NHS is amazing. Like, because we go to the most fun for fitting and stuff. So.
Well, very interestingly, if you type into britishpathe.com, that's British, then Pathe, where I'm sat right now at Roehampton Club, was the original home of Blesma. So the club during the war gave over the part of the fields here for the limbless servicemen, and then Queen Mary's Hospital became the sort of medical centre after the war and what have you. So golf and services have always gone hand in hand anyway. Dom's ending a great question here, and I was going to ask the same thing. He says, what's your diet routine? Now, I know that when you're on the road and what have you, trying to get healthy food and what have you at all times of day and night in different countries, that must be hard. So, A, what's your diet routine normally? And B, what's it like when you're out on tour?
Yeah. So this morning, I've not long had it. So I'll have there's 10 strawberries, 10 raspberries and a protein shake. So I'll have that every morning. And then for dinner time, I'll have either some sort of protein, i.e. like chicken or something like that. And then I'll have another shake in the afternoon. And then I'll have a decent meal at night. I try and, it's hard this time because I can't stay away from the fridge, but I try and eat sort of, I try and eat healthy, chicken and rice, lots of vegetables, and just stuff like that, really, and try and stay away from the sweetie jar.
It's hard though, isn't it?
On the road, on the road though, it's really hard because, like I say, but that's when it all comes down to preparation again.
Sure.
I work with a good bloke that sorts all that stuff out for me when I'm on the road. So I've obviously gone with Max Protein, so I've always got a good protein drink with me. And I try and just eat a lot of fruit and just try and healthy stuff, But it's hard when you're on the road. But like the European tours, everything's with the exits, everything's there and prepped for you, and it's pretty cool.
It's interesting as well. You can look at some of the players who are out there now. Not all of them are supreme athletes, but for the most part, they're all pretty healthy, living pros, aren't they?
They're pure athletes now, and it's impressive to watch.
Well, you talked about Lee Westwood earlier. Lee Westwood, he's a very big, thick-set lad, and he says the only cardio work he does now is on the golf course. I just walk on the golf course. It's only cardio. The rest of the time, he spends in the gym pushing weights.
Yeah.
So, a cracking question now from Gus Dennis Hales, and this is something, Gus, which is it's a superb question because everybody should know this relative to themselves. Gus is saying, "What's your pre-shot routine?"
So I'll always give myself like 10 seconds before I even think about hitting the ball, just to calm myself down and figure out what shot I want to play. Once I've got my yardage, and then I'll go up. And what I always do is try and pick a point 6 inches in front of the ball. So I'll line my club up straight over the ball, pick a point where I can actually watch. So that takes all my focus away from where the ball's actually going to go to something that's in my vision. So obviously you're looking sideways at the golf, at your target is sideways. So that's out of peripheral vision. So I'll keep something that's in my peripheral vision straight in that I can see, so I'll know as soon as I hit the ball, it's gone over that. And then that's pretty much what I do. I'll have one practice swing, and then just pull the trigger.
That's a brilliant answer because it was so vague. Now, it was not vague to you, and I don't mean vague in a negative way. It's vague because we're looking at it going, well, you just think, I've got 10 seconds, I pick something in front of me and hit the ball. The point of what Mike's saying there is the preparation didn't start just before the shot. It started way before the shot. It started weeks before the shot. And that's what he's talking about with his practice and his rehearsal routines at home, doing the short game practice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and playing in the tournaments on Thursday, getting his diet prepared and organised. Now, he's an elite player. He's playing at a professional standard here, so he has to think like that. Now, at a more sort of club level, your pre-shot routine should be brief, but it should be precise. Now, let's say you've got a problem with your alignment, then just focus on your alignment because everything else will just sort of fit into place or it'll amble into place. And the thing about the game is that we need to be conscious of certain things and unconscious of other things. So when you position yourself here, let's say Dio, Alistair, and myself have talked about something, make that the only thing you think about because that's the only thing we could look at which could cure 10 other things. And our job as coaches is to work on one thing which has 10 improvements, not 10 things that might have one improvement. Your job as the golfer when you go on the golf course is to have a very defined pre-shot routine. And again, that's a sort of a vague way of saying, well, just do it your way, but you have to do it your way. But again, within 4 or 5 seconds, you should be holding the club, positioning yourself. The best piece of advice we can all take, and again, it comes from Jack Nicklaus, the best player of all time. Pick a target 6 inches in front of you and try and hit the ball over that. If it goes over that, it's not going to skew too far off target, is it?
Yeah, and also that sort of gives me, because I used to have a really high angle of attack. So with a 7-iron at one stage, I was like +6 of my attack angle, which is like massively high. So what I started doing now is trying to put that into my real shot routine of getting the feeling of not having a shallow attack. So that's another thing I just add in.
Yeah, so that's actually during the swing, really, but you're thinking about it before the swing is made, aren't you?
Yeah.
Now,
it's already pre-thought.
Just out of interest, I was chatting with Mike last week, and I was just saying what you're working on with your swing and what have you. And so he said, I'm trying to keep my right foot flat on the ground. He says, I keep raising it. So I said, but listen, mate, I said, I'm going to send you some photographs now of some guys who are making a few million quid a year here. Now you look at that right foot, way off the ground.
Yeah.
Look at his right foot there. It's just in time. Look at both his feet. I was just zooming on that picture.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy who's not trying to keep his feet on the ground. Now, I hope in my small way that by sending Mike a video or a couple of clips, again, look at that right foot off the ground. This can look at Bubba Watson there. So I sent Mike all these pictures saying, listen, mate, you're working on the wrong thing there because there's so much evidence. Again, then look at those feet off the ground there, Bubba Watson. There's so much evidence.
As soon as you said that totally changed my what I was working on.
Yeah.
So I've gone with that and I'm hitting the ball well now. So. And
the funny thing was, what Mike said, I thought this was really interesting. He said, when I'm trying to stop my right heel from raising off the ground. He said, but when I do that, I lose distance. Well, don't do it. It's one of those things where you've got to keep your thought process super logical, haven't you? If you hit the ball further doing something, it's because it's a more efficient action in physics. Now, this is where we've got to really understand the game. Is what's the best efficient physical action I can make, applying science, Mother Nature, and physics, and forget what you're sort of reading on YouTube or looking at in magazines. It's not always perfect for you. Well, listen, Mike, that was brilliant. I think what I'd like to do is do this actually a bit more frequently, because what I've said to the On-Course Foundation is I would love to do these sessions through the winter time, because obviously we do the sessions at the venues throughout the summertime when the weather's nice, but then we have that long period where we don't see each other. So I think I'd like to do some more of the online tuition through the quiet periods. We're looking at branching out to the sort of personal recovery injuries as well. I think we're doing that on Tuesday with the On-Course Foundation. But this Q&A, I've learned something today. I've learned quite a few things actually, and also what I'm learning from you is I will take and use it as part of my coaching conversation with the On-Course Foundation and also with my members of the club here. And it's a phrase I use an awful lot when people are grousing here or moaning. I say, listen, you've got 2 arms and 2 legs. You're lucky to be playing the game.
Yeah.
Just get out there and enjoy it. And if you can get fresh air and golf and you make all the friendships that we have. I've got loads of friends in the On-Course Foundation, tons of them. I absolutely adore doing what I do. So I think these sessions where we get together are going to be very valuable for all of us for lots of reasons: mental health, improving our golf.
Anything I can do to help, I'm here, and not that I'm a coach or anything like that, but just just from a disabled golfer's point of view, or trying to work through mental health sort of side of things. I'm always here, so anyone's welcome to contact me, whatever. I'm trying to help.
Couldn't ask for more, mate. Mike, I really appreciate your time doing that. Like I say, it's been a very big benefit to me, the On-Course Foundation, and I think that the servicemen who will watch this...
As long as we can help others, that's what it's all about.
Most important thing, mate, give each other a leg up. Well, listen, folks, thanks very much. What I'll do is I'll arrange another schedule with Mike. And I think in the meantime, if you have any questions after watching this, either live or on YouTube, send them in to me, and then Mike and I will work out a format which works again for us to discuss those things. But thanks again for your time. I do appreciate it. I want you all to stay healthy, stay in touch, and I'll send out the schedule for next week. But we'll do 2 sessions next week, and then we'll get another Q&A scheduled in with Mike another time. So all the best to all of you. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks again, Mike.
No more than welcome. Take care, lads, and I'll hopefully see you soon.
Great.
Bye bye.
Well done, mate. You okay?
Yeah, did you enjoy that?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.